You know, I never thought anyone would have to say this, but I suppose I have to. No, that's not it. But working for Disney freaking sucks. I was treated like scum. I was forced to work as a low-level script writer for Playhouse Disney before it changed over to Disney Junior. Despite technically being a script writer, I never wrote any of the scripts for Disney. It was treated more like an intern by the company. Yeah, I was an intern. And then we do all the really boring stuff that no employees want to do, such as shredding papers and licking the boss's Nike shoes. Well, yeah, if my boss was Michael Jordan, that would make sense, now wouldn't it? Or if he was the shredder. I was furious that the executives and other script writers wouldn't allow me to have my say on the scripts they wrote. Well, not to brag or anything, humble brag, but I'm a very intelligent person, humble brag, with loads of creative ideas, humble brag, on where to take Playhouse Disney and their shows like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and Special Agent. Also, perhaps my differing opinion on the directions the shows should take led to my low-ranking position in the company. It also didn't help that my boss, Steve Notes, hates my guts. Notes is an incredibly angry man who's very nice and polite to the other scriptwriters, but treats me like a piece of cheesy chewing gum you'd find stuck to the bottom of a table. Notes, like so many, used to work as an intern for Playhouse Disney back from 2008-2009. In March 2011, however, the former head of Playhouse Disney, Joseph Green, stepped down, decided to take early retirement with his wife, who's obsessed with wasps, and I don't mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. By this time, Nates had risen to become one of the highest-ranking employees of the Playhouse Disney Corporation, and thus was given the top job itself once Green retired. Notes is also corrupt, taking bribes from local mob boss Barry Scott. He uses the money he made from his bribes from Scott to build robot overlords who act as supervisors for the writing team. Another thing that really grinds my gears is the fact they only get 1 break per day. It's not even a half-hour break. It's only 2 minutes. More like a 2-minute warning. I also cannot stand my coworkers. They're so frickin' mean to me. One time a coworker named Lance asked if I wanted a cup of coffee. How frickin' rude is that, huh? He should know that I hate coffee. Hot or iced, it don't matter. Everybody knows that. Even stupid Jackie knows that. Heck, even you know that, listener. Coffee tastes like ass. Also, my coworkers sometimes offer to give me a lift home. Well, rude, right? What are they trying to imply? That I'm too lazy to walk home? I only live like over 9,000 miles from work anyway. Now, believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Ha! Only joking, friend. I can call you friend, right? I don't have any friends. Anyway, I do actually have some friends, I guess, at work. Well, just 2, that is. One of my friends is named Jason Toom, who works as an intern, like me. While the other is a janitor named Sam Sung Bear. Jason is very dumb. He's only working as an intern part-time due to his full-time job being a sheep farmer. As a sheep farmer, Jason makes very little profit, which is why he took up an internship at Playhouse Disney. He hopes that with the money made from his internship, he'll be able to pay off the debts he owes to several prominent Russian gangsters. Now, Samsung Bear, on the other hand, is very wicked and loves to play harmless. That's right. Pranks on the I'm good now. Interns. One time, Bear killed a rat and dropped it in a female intern's coffee, as if it didn't taste like shit already. The intern ended up choking and spitting the smelly rat out before passing out on her own desk. Maybe Shredder had finally killed Splinter. That intern sued Samsung Bear for $100,000 over a harmless little prank. So much hassle, right, Mr. Castle? Let me live. If you got that reference, leave a comment. The three of us had bonded over our mischievous ways. We'd all come to the same conclusion that we hated Steve Notes. We were conspiring to get rid of the bastard. We began holding regular meetings in the upstairs men's room of Playhouse Disney headquarters. Bear suggested pulling a horrible prank on Notes, which would cause him to step down. Toon, meanwhile, suggested using Morse code for some bizarre reason. I don't even know why, to be honest with you. That's when I suggested making an episode so terrible, so terrifying, and so delightfully PG, it will scare the pants off of Notes. In fact, Notes will be so unbelievably scared that he'd be forced to take an early retirement, just like his predecessor, Green, had done all those years ago. Even with those golden plates. We decided to make it a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Lost episode, since Mickey Mouse is, of course, the mascot for Disney, in case you haven't noticed, ain't SpongeBob or Pikachu. Now, I was not actually involved in the making of the episode, but did provide Bear and Toon with a script. Meanwhile, Bear and Toon worked their arses off to make the episode as good as possible. Handed the scripts over to the voice actors, who thought nothing of it. I snickered a snicker as I made my way back to my workstation. Snickered! The rats were going to be flushed out of their holes. Yeah. Be my pleasure to watch Note's sanity crumble like the Roman Empire when they started giving women rights. 1 month later, I was shredding papers as usual. I'd forgotten all about the frickin' episode. That's when I was called into the viewing room by Toon. Met up with Toon and Bear outside the viewing room. We made our way inside in order to witness perhaps the greatest prank ever made. We sat down at the back of the room as Mr. Notes walked up onto a small platform which sat at the very front of the viewing room.
Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special day,
Mr. Notes said, before continuing with,
not only are we about to view the premiere of a brand new season of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, we also have a guest speaker in the roomer. Can you join me in giving a round of applause for Governor Frank Burning?
No, we all said in unison, as Notes awkwardly left the area, having one of his executives pop the DVD into the nearby DVD player. Meanwhile, Governor Burning sat on the far side of the room, and Notes went to go and join him. The episode began with the normal theme song. Oh, it was boring. Mickey Mouse walked up the path to greet the viewer as normal. He said his usual lines.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Mickey Mouse. So you want to come inside my clubhouse?
However, things turned weird once Mickey said,
well, all right, let's go.
The camera panned over to show there being no clubhouse as normal.
Oh, I almost forgot. There's no clubhouse.
Mickey said happily, as he began staring at the screen for an uncomfortable amount of time. So long, in fact, the Notes began hitting the player with his iron fists. Yes, his fists were made from actual iron. So sad. Eventually, the episode cut to show the rest of the intro, but things just weren't right. For starters, the person singing the lyrics was Tom Jones. The only person who appeared during the roll call was Pete. Even Mickey himself did not appear during the roll call, instead being replaced by Pete. The episode's title then came on screen, which read, Pete Beat. Ah, Pete-centered episode. How delightfully PG tips, if you don't mind me saying. The episode then started with Mickey and Minnie packing some stuff into a basket for a picnic.
Oh, hi there. Me and Minnie are going to go see Goofy.
Mickey said as he continued with,
he's suffering from a bad cold again, so Minnie's made him another bowl of soup to cheer him right up.
Wanna come with us?
Minnie asked as the screen did an awkward cut to yellow. Lasted only 2 seconds before it came back to show Mickey and Minnie leaving the clubhouse. Somehow, the clubhouse that wasn't there. They were also accompanied by Donald and Daisy, who were bringing some flowers to Goofy. While walking, Mickey and the gang were intercepted by Pete.
What's going on with that picnic basket, friends?
Pete asked.
We're taking some soup to Goofy. He's sick again, Pete.
Minnie explained as the gang attempted to walk past, only for Pete to stop them.
Where you going in such a hurry? Don't you want to answer my riddle?
Pete asked.
No, thanks. We really got to be going.
Mickey said, only for Pete to ask.
Are you sure, Mick? It's about a goose.
That's when Mickey snapped. He began beating the ever-living daylights out of Pete while the other characters watched on and applauded Mickey. It's quite cool, actually. Can't say the same for the rest of the staff, as the female intern I mentioned earlier began vomiting into her heels. Of course, some people are into that sort of thing. Pete was then shown on the floor all bloodied and bruised, as Mickey said in a rather chilling voice, "Don't fuck with me."
Yeah? What if I do?
Pete asked.
Well, you'll end up like your dear friend Mortimer.
Mickey responded as he handed Pete a pair of binoculars as he and the gang began making their leave. Pete looked through the binoculars and saw Mortimer hanging from a helicopter, which was being driven by Wallace and Gromit, with Wallace saying, "Murder is our specialty."
What did he do?
Pete asked as he began following the group through the forest. Mickey sighed before saying,
"Several years ago in California, he was an informant for DreamWorks. He helped them make ants and flushed away. Look."
Pete then asked if he could come with the gang as he was rather scared and hungry.
No.
Daisy joked as she falcon punched Pete, causing him to fly through the woods all the way back to the clubhouse.
Stupid bastard.
Daisy joked as she and the others continued making their way through the woods. Back at the clubhouse, Pete was shown sulking over a tub of ice cream about how Mickey and the gang always belittle and bully him. It's then shown through several flashbacks that Pete has always tried to win the approval of Mickey Mouse so he can join in on the fun, but is always shut down and called a villain by Mickey and his friends. Pete hated the way that Disney always portrayed him in an antagonist role. He thought that by singing on to do a play school targeted program, he'd finally be given a protagonist role. Sadly, however, this turned out not to be the case at all.
I'll show them,
Pete said, as he made a trampoline appear magically and used it to bounce all the way back to where Daisy had thrown him from. The episode then cut to a brief clip of some frogs singing in a dimly lit jazz club.
So like jazz, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. The regular crowd shuffles in. There's an old man sitting.
The hell was this, Michigan J. Frog? Leave a comment if you got the reference. Notes got up from his chair and cried,
"I can't take it!"
He then proceeded to shoot himself in the head with the governor's revolver. Governor Burning didn't seem fazed at all by Notes' death, nor does to keep watching the episode. He also threatened to shoot anyone who tried to call an ambulance for Notes. Not like it would do much good anyway. He was deader than Dead Bart. Whatever. Oh yeah, I went there. What are you going to do about it, punk? What you going to do when you're sitting all alone in your empty ass home with a mother sawed off? Anyway, the episode then came back to show Pete tiptoeing along a long wooden bridge while Mickey and the gang were busy trying to solve an incredibly easy puzzle involving some stones. Ainsley knows of a good place to get stones, do you? Pete was eventually able to catch up with Mickey and the gang. He ran right past them, stealing the basket in the process.
Harry, stealing the soup.
Then he cried at the top of her lungs.
What? No, I'm...
Pete was cut off as he was tackled to the ground by Mickey and Donald. While getting beaten up, Pete cried,
Dallas! Dallas! Help me!
The camera then panned over to show Dallas Coleman just rubbing the back of his head nervously while saying, "Well, I'm not really qualified, Pete." He then pulled a wickedly wicked grin that only a mother could love. Are you a mother? Leave a comment if you are. Mickey grabbed the can of soup from Pete and handed it over to Minnie.
Unbelievable! You really can't help yourself, can you, Pete?
Mickey asked as Pete cried,
I wasn't stealing the soup.
Pete then proceeded to explain that he'd taken the soup in order to test the gang. He wanted to see if the gang truly hated his guts and saw him as nothing more than an annoying threat. Donald muttered as he pushed Pete aside as the gang began making their way to Goofy's tent, which was just up the hill. Pete began to sobbing heavily into his legs. He then stopped and smiled an evil smirk as he crept his way back to the clubhouse. Upon return to the clubhouse, Pete headed inside the shed and grabbed one of Professor Von Drake's old inventions.
Oh, yeah, this'll do the trick.
Pete chuckled. As he made his way out of the shed, his sinister, squiddy music began to play in the background. Arriving at Goofy's tent, Mickey and his friends were just about to walk in when they heard,
"That soup belongs to me, asswipe."
Mickey laughed in a mocking tone before turning around and saying,
"I'd like to see you try. Oh.
The whole gang gasped at the sight. Pete was now over 9,000 feet tall. Turns out the machine Pete had recovered was a growth machine Von Drake had built years ago. Von Drake used the machine to make tomatoes bigger in order to satisfy the urges of a certain Principal Seymour Skinner or Armin Tamzarian, if you happen to be a connoisseur of the Simpsons arts. Pete raised his massive boot into the air before proclaiming,
"So long, Pipsqueak."
He stomped on Mickey and the gang, killing them all instantly.
"I feel so alive!"
Pete laughed as he picked up the soup from Minnie's basket and downed it in one go. He even ate the can that the soup came in. He proceeded to yank the tent open and saw Goofy just chilling in bed reading a book on stocks.
"Hiya, Pete. What's shaking? Yuck, yuck, yuck,"
Goofy asked as Pete raised his foot to stomp on Goof. Goof, however, ended up sneezing an above-average sneeze. It made my glass of water break. It was that loud. The sudden noise had startled Pete and caused him to fall off the hill, plummeting to his death.
"Well, gosh,"
Goofy muttered as he made his way back to the clubhouse, having somehow recovered instantly from his cold. That's rather suspicious, if I may say so myself. Anyway. With Mickey and the gang dead, Goofy was given sole ownership of the clubhouse. Goofy converted the clubhouse into a fishing club where people could fish and drink beer whilst listening to Queen. Goofy also became something of a chef, having kept some of Minnie's old cookbooks. As the years passed, Goofy grew old and gray, but he kept memories of his friends by naming all of his household appliances after them. What a guy. Even better than the Beauty and the Beast appliances, if I do say so myself. With that, the episode ended with the normal credits, but no one was shown dancing during them. Hot dog. All of the staff were shocked and were rioting over the episode we just saw. I had no idea that Toom and Bear had it in them to create such a disturbing yet strangely cautionary tale about typecasting. Pete was typecast as a villain, tried his best to prove his worth to the other characters. And when that failed, Pete lashed out by killing Mickey and the gang shortly before getting killed himself. What a moral. Me and my friends confessed to Governor Burning and the others that we were responsible for creating the episode.
"Office now,"
Governor Burning barked in a harsh whisper. I prefer careless whisper, to be honest. Wham! Arriving at Notes' office, we were congratulated on making the best episode ever by Governor Burning. He admitted that he'd never seen such an amazing thrill ride of a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse episode. Burning announced that he was taking over Playhouse Disney from Notes, was converting it into Disney Junior. Promoted me to a senior exec, while Toom and Bear were both also promoted to senior positions in the company as well. Oh, don't you just love happy endings? Like that ice cream at Friendly's. Delicious. 2 weeks later, though, I was caught eating an orangutan finger. Yes, an orangutan finger. Let's just say I'm a rather odd guy, if you catch my drift. Monkeying around. Was fired on the spot by Burning and replaced me with Toom. Both Jason Toom and Samsung Bear still work for Disney Jr., but cut their ties with me following my dismissal from the company. Some good out of it, however. Me and the female intern I kept mentioning in this tale started dating shortly after the episode fiasco. Found an attraction in each other when we both realized we were orangutan finger eaters. Sorry, I'm actually lying. She wants something to do with me and finds my orangutan finger eating ways disgusting. So perhaps society is to blame. I mean, whatever. Anyway, they lied and told Governor Burning I had no part in its making, other than handing it over to the voice actors and animators. Well, technically true, but it was I who spearheaded the entire scheme. How rude. Michelle. So, I'm sorry to say, but this is the end of our story. Did you enjoy? Well, neither did I. Bastard. You're not the only one who had to live through this. Okay? Sorry, I'm just still really pissed off, you could hear in my tone of voice. I'm getting fired, along with Toom and Bear taking all the credits. Perhaps it's time to get my own back. I've got a little growth serum we use on flowers, so maybe, just maybe, I can get my ultimate revenge. When Mr. Bigglesworth gets angry, people die. I gotta go, for it's time for me to reunite with some old friends. Who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? I don't know, I forgot.